Hello and welcome to edition 4 of your Balkanweek. What I'd like to talk about this week is violence and the threat of violence. Let me set this up by recalling to you a film. In 1996, the film came out. The title was translated into English as Pretty Village, Pretty Flame. And the basic storyline of the film, it involved a group of soldiers who were trapped in a tunnel during the war, and the time that they had in the tunnel allowed each of them to reflect upon their experience and understanding of violence. But the thing about this tunnel is that it was a tunnel that some of them remembered from their childhood. It was a place where a mythical beast was supposed to live, the Baba Roga, and they were told to avoid the tunnel and instructed that bad things would happen if they went to the tunnel. Now, this film, it was an influential film. It's possible to be critical of it, but at the time that it came out in 1996 in Serbia, it was the first mass market popular culture product that allowed people to reflect upon the experience of violence and the war. But it did it in an interesting way, and I want to concentrate on this creature, mythical creature that was supposed to live in the tunnel, the Baba Roga. Now, the Baba Roga is a folk demon, and folk demons are figures that exist in pretty much every culture in the world. A fictional creature that is the representation of danger, of threat, of the malevolence of the world. There's a reason that folk demons exist in pretty much every culture, and that is that they serve a purpose. What folk demons do is they allow the people to externalize, to embody and illustrate, and also to make palatable the fact that human beings are capable of evil. So it serves a purpose. This is why people generate them in popular fiction and in folk tales and so on. The thing about this representation of the human capacity for evil through a folk demon is that it is fundamentally false, and it is false in a way that has political implications, because what it suggests is that the capacity of humans for violence and for evil is some kind of monster. It is something that exists outside. It comes from nature. It comes from some kind of spiritual character of people. This is not where violence and danger and evil come from. They come from decisions that are made by human beings. So as a metaphor for the war and for the violence in Bosnia and Hercegovina, the Baba Roga was inaccurate in a way that was politically important. And it's inaccurate again, as you can see now, at least a lot of warnings about the threat of violence in Bosnia and Herzegovina being higher now than it has been at any time since the end of the war. Why is this happening? The principal reason is because the political leader, the member of the presidency from one of the entities in Bosnia and Herzegovina, the president Milorad Dodik, is boycotting state institutions, has made threats that he will pull the participation of his entity out of the judiciary, the military, some law enforcement agencies, and so on, has been saying that he wants to escalate the autonomy that the Republika Srpska has under the Dayton Peace Agreement into independence in a way that can only result in violence. Now, there are two versions of the story that account for this. One of them has to do with regulations introduced by the outgoing representative. Government in Bosnia is overseen by the so-called High Representative of the international community. The outgoing representative, Valentin Inzko, decreed a law. The High Representative can decree laws that set criminal penalties for denial of genocide and war crimes. And in their public statements, the representatives of Republika Srpska say that their boycott of institutions and threat of secession is a protest. Another version of the story is that this comes right on the heels of a very large scandal in Republika Srpska, in which companies close to the ruling party purchased and distributed medical equipment for care of patients who were victims of the coronavirus that was not up to medical standard. That is, they were doing what nationalists do, that is, assuring profit for themselves and their friends by putting into danger the lives of ordinary people and citizens. So you can see that threats have been escalating and that there has been very little response. Now, probably what will happen is that the actual threat of violence will be limited. There will not be a new war. This is a pattern of behavior for Dodik, to escalate and escalate until he is told to stop. So as a rule, he never does anything that he isn't permitted to do. He doesn't check first, so he tests the limits. When it's time to stop, he does stop eventually. Fundamentally, Dodik is a puppet character who wants to maintain his power and will not do more than he is permitted, but will certainly not do less. So probably threats will be unrealized. I mean, I think it's probably also the case. He wants to pull out of the military. Members of the military aren't willing to join whatever new military force he founds for a variety of reasons. He wants to mobilize citizens for violence. Citizens do not want more violence. They are not ready for it, and they are not motivated for it. So in all likelihood, these things will not happen. There was a time when people could be mobilized for violence, when they believed that the group of which they were members was fundamentally threatened, but they're not going to do it in order to save the corruption schemes of somebody in power. They can have somebody else in power. But the fact that the threat is being escalated, that we're talking about the prospect of violence being real, indicates two things. First, that even with a peace agreement in place for 26 years, you still have a situation of high polarization that is open to the kind of fear-mongering and escalation that we're seeing now, and that we've seen in several instances before. And the second thing that we're seeing is that we have an international community with an institution that is designed to exercise oversight in this country, and they've done the worst possible thing with the power that they have given themselves, and that is that they give themselves powers which they decline to use, so that in the event that that violence does result, this violence is going to be primarily the result of the weakness and indecision and lack of vision on the part of internationals who have oversight over the situation. So keep an eye on it. We'll see what happens and hope for the best, certainly fear the worst, and try to understand what happens when it does.